Hello and welcome to another episode of Heal and Shift. I'm your host, and this is a podcast to really get behind the process of healing in thought leaders, in expert guides, in caretakers, in teachers, in leading practitioners, and how they manage to develop their awareness to become less attached to themselves, to work for humanity and the planet, where many of us are held back by our ego. So I'm absolutely delighted today to welcome somebody I actually share some friends with. It's James Malins. Hi, James.
Hello, it's a pleasure to be here.
Great to see you. So for those of you not familiar with James's work, James is a guide for seekers with a growing following of 12K, and a public speaker with a message to help his audience live a life of purpose. But really, I'm here today to understand about James's mindset. Now, James, we're recent friends. We've known each other maybe for maybe a couple of years, I think. And I would describe you as an effervescent person. You're very lively and high-spirited, but you're totally grounded at the same time. It's a very interesting combination. And I know your story doesn't come without early challenges. You know, I read you were bullied at a young age, and you came through that to be the person you are today. So tell us about that journey. How did you come through that process?
So it's interesting because I think that with a lot of us, or a lot of people in the world today, they have come across this idea of bullying, or people taking the mick out of them or attacking them for some reason or some purpose as to who they are. And for me, I didn't escape that. I experienced it pretty aggressively when I was a kid. It really did get to me. But the one thing that set me free was beginning to ask the right questions. And for anybody who's listening, this is really the biggest thing to change your own reality, is start to ask the right questions. Because I always used to say to me, why me? You know, why is it me? If there is a God, you know, why on earth would I experience this? Why would this come? And why would I have to go through this? And then one day I ended up looking in the mirror and I asked myself, why not me? And in the process of doing that, ironic as the beautiful title you have for your podcast, I shifted the energy and the reality and the experience from one that was coming at me and piling on top of me to one where I was then standing above it. And then I could ask myself, okay, why not me? What is the purpose for this? What is really the reason for my experiences? And it's when that happened that I ultimately empowered myself to become a different human being altogether. So it was the questioning of who I was, what I believed in, what was actually true in my reality. So my beliefs were that, you know, I clearly wasn't a great person if people wanted to treat me this way. I was clearly, you know, this and that, or ugly or skinny or weak, etc. When the truth was that actually I was none of those things. It was only my current perception. And when that changed, my reality changed.
Yeah.
So.
Now, I was looking, you know, when I was looking at your content and your videos, and you were a bodybuilder. You look completely different. I was looking at those pictures and I was like, wow, I didn't know that about James. And I understand that therapy was really powerful for you. And I can understand also. I mean, I remember when I was much younger, I lived abroad for many years as a journalist, and I used to go to the gym twice a day. I mean, I can't even imagine setting foot in a gym now. And it was really important the way that I looked, and I remember, you know, paying for all sorts of slimming sessions and this and that, and you know, we have these moments, don't we? So bodybuilding was a big therapy, very powerful for you. What other unlikely experiences have led to unexpected transformations for you?
This is a question that I love, and one that even only the closest to me would really know this. And to kind of just cover bodybuilding for a moment to give people an idea of what it actually gave me, is bodybuilding and working on my body gave me the opportunity to understand that I could change. And this is one of the biggest principles that I think will benefit a lot of people, is understanding that who you are now is just a moment in time. And from every second, from every minute to the next, we are changing, whether we believe it or not. So when you actively and consciously understand that you are changing, then you can realize that over a period of a month, 2 months, or etc., the change can be immense. It can be huge and incredible. And not only that, but you get the evidence of your own power. So I was able to realize that if I could change my physical body, the next question is, well, what else can I change? What else am I capable of if I can push myself through so much pain and so much tension, training my body in the gym? What else am I capable of? And then to kind of elaborate and to understand what else helped me for those who might be interested. I am a lover of stories. So I watch a lot of movies, TV series. I've played a lot of games and Xbox games and video games in my life. And it was always the stories that captivated me the most. It would draw me in, and there would be little principles, little ideas. Like, I'm going to say this because there might be somebody watching who would find this funny. But one thing that really impacted my life was a cartoon or an anime or called Dragon Ball Z. And when I was a kid growing up and I was watching that program, it constantly was putting into my mind that you can keep pushing your limits, that family and friendship is the strongest thing, that you can defend yourself, that you can be that powerful, whether not literally, but conceptually within your mind, within your ability. Your willpower can grow, your strength can grow. So really, for me, like, the things that have shaped who I am is watching things that brought me ideas and being aware of them. So it wasn't just watching a movie, it was watching the story, understanding the depths of the characters, what it meant, what it really brought to their journey and how they transformed. And then I just ended up applying that to myself. And it's what a lot of us, yes, we're living reality, we're living life, but it's also a story. We are quite literally walking and living our own story. And every year is a chapter, or every experience is a paragraph in that chapter. So when I realized this, or if we are to realize this, then you understand that you're writing your story with your thoughts and your actions every day.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
It's interesting because a mentor of mine many, many years ago, a dear friend of mine, when I lived in London for many years. And he's now in America, and it was really he supported me through what I consider now, I understand to be my spiritual awakening, and he really held my hand through that process. And he used to say to me, he said, people, they design their homes, they design their gardens, they design dresses for their wedding, but they don't design their life. That we don't actually bring that level of awareness into the greatest magical thing that we have, that we are creating, day by day. So I mean, and why do you think that is, James? Why do you think we put so much onus on sort of these other material things and not on the greatest story that we have?
I think that it always has to come down to the origin point, and that's when we are born. As we are born and as we are grown up, I don't think I'm wrong by suggesting this, but I think that the vast majority of people, especially over the past 100, 150, 200 years, have experienced the same process of being born, having parents with very particular ideas, very particular belief systems that were perhaps molded by governments and societies and education systems, to which was then replicated in their life. They went on to, and again, no disrespect and full love to anybody who has done this, because again, it's not about what we have or haven't done. It's only about this awareness. But then they might have gone on to get a career, get the house, get the car, get the family, and then perpetuate the cycle. And it's only when people started to say, but is that really true? But are you sure about that? But what does this mean? It's only when we begun to actually move into an energy in this world where people were allowed to question. Because, you know, often, especially a few hundred years ago, people had very strong beliefs. If you didn't adhere to that belief, you were attacked, sometimes even beaten into submission. So it's kind of like the free will and the should we say the expansion of human beings, of the listeners, people who are watching, is coming because people are now questioning. They're saying, well, I don't want that job for 50, 60 years. I don't want this. I don't want that. It's not important to me. And because they're exploring this with such a strong willpower and a strong understanding, because we are getting stronger as people, regardless of what we're seeing in the world now, and we won't, in the end, I'll ask you if you want to go into that, but regardless of what we're seeing, people are stronger. They are able to make more decisions for themselves, to understand who they are on a deeper level. They're seeking, as you profoundly said, right? People are now seeking more and more for the answers that actually set them free and allow their soul to come through. Because there is a difference between living and living. And what I mean by that is some people just live, or should we say exist, and there are other people who are living from their soul and who are really feeling exactly what that is when it comes through into their life and their reality. So now it isn't, and I mean this with all the love in the world, but this is exactly what happened. We can't deny it. You know, a woman isn't supposed to be in a kitchen. A man isn't supposed to do a job like this and do it, and that's it. Like these stereotypes, these descriptions of individuals have been shattered. And now it's like, it isn't so much about men, women, skin, age, degree, or place of birth or whatever. It's now down to the individual. You take one person, no matter where they've come from, who they are, what they look like, you put them in a seat and you ask the question, what is it you want? Who are you? What is it that really allows you to feel excited and joyful and feel like you're living from not just your human self, but also from everything else that you are? And it's that act of approaching the individual that is now changing.
And it's interesting because actually today, one of my sisters, she actually sent me an article, and this article is it's actually all about really yoga. So, but it's in the sense that, you know, that this article was talking about how yoga's been overtaken by the West, and I will say it as it is, by you know, by white women. And now, you know, this article was all about, you know, the Asian instructors are taking it back. But the message, it's the message I want to relay in this, is that actually the West is very rational. We live our lives very rationally. You know, that is exactly, that's the systems that we live in, that's the environment that we grow up in, that's sort of how society sets the rules. Whereas in the East, things are very mystical. You know, we transcend those perceptions more so. You know, we are much more connected to spirit and soul. It's a normal part of the conversation. I mean, I remember as a child, it was very normal, you know, for relatives and family to be talking about something as simple like karma, you know, and how your actions impact your reality, and also reincarnation, in that you know, and it would be always joke like, you know, well, that's great, enjoy this life, and I'll see you next time, and let's see, you know, what we learn then. So when you grow up in an environment where you're not you know, where you transcend those norms, I think that there is more of an opportunity sooner to tap into you know, into your ultimately your God-given purpose. But when we have so many layers that we have to peel, which is, you know, which is really what we're talking about here, it's much more harder. Now, you know, another thing about you, James, is I'm looking at you and I see all your beautiful tattoos. Now, I train a lot of therapists, and really 80-90% of them they're free spirits. You know, they've chosen a certain path, and many of them have the most amazing tattoos. And I just wonder, you know, can you tell us about yours? And was that also part of your transformation?
It definitely was, 100%, because when I first got my tattoos, and as I progressed to get more and more, it was an expression of what I felt on the inside and the outside of my body. You know, it allowed me to because I haven't been the most all over my I had them on my fingers and my hands when I was 18. My tattoo artist he said, by the way, if we do this, it'll affect your jobs. And I says that I won't be having a job for the rest of my life. Just do it. And then I went on to my neck when I was in the prison service. So ironically, you'd never expect that, but I did anyway. And it really, it's to me, it is a representation of the power I feel within on the outside of my body. And ironically, I have 3 days consecutively at the end of this month where I'm getting one of my arms finished off. So it's kind of like, it's also been a representation as I have evolved, so like, yes, it was kind of defiance as well, as people had opinions of, oh my goodness, well, you can't get tattoos. And if people told me I couldn't do something, it's not that I would go ahead and do it, but it was that it wouldn't matter to me because I knew my heart and I knew what I desired for myself in this world. And I stuck to that, and it's brought me to where I am today. So it is self-love.
Yeah. So self-love, this disconnect from the systems that were around you, this deep connection to something transcendent and mystical within you, that's what I'm hearing, has really kept you committed to your work and what you're doing. And now we've all had, this year of all being in lockdown and, not connecting with our nearest and dearest and been living through Zoom. So this, it's been challenging and put a lot of pressure on a lot of people. What have you found for yourself? Have you learned anything new about yourself through this process?
So I'm going to put myself in a position here, but I'm going to do it anyway because it is, to me, from my heart, it is for the people. I haven't been in lockdown at all. And I have been going about my life just as I would any other day. And it's actually phenomenal because over the past year and a half or however long it's been now, because I'm not even sure because I haven't been living the same reality, I have been quite literally doing exactly what it is that my heart called, going to the beach, going to the forest, walks, traveling across to be where it is I need to be for business reasons, of course, if we are to talk about it like that. But in the same sense, like I use the same systems, the systems imparted upon us. And ironically, to kind of give an idea as to how it's changed me is it made me realize more about what is happening in society and what people have experienced. And to me, again, it comes down to what we kind of discussed in the beginning, which is fear. And more importantly, the evolution of fear. So as I experienced or we experience it as a collective, people often see fear as the enemy and, oh my goodness, I'm afraid and scared of this, without realizing that fear itself also has a duality. It has two perspectives, two ideas. And that idea is that often, to me, I'm not saying this is the case all the time, but what it is we fear is usually where our soul or our passion is destined to be. Now, somebody might say, oh my goodness, well, I'm afraid of being injured or losing my health or etc. And I say, well, the same applies. Perhaps you're destined to be a wellness practitioner, or perhaps you're destined to understand your body at a deeper level, right? So your fear is actually presenting you with focus. And that is that whatever you're afraid of, I'd like to suggest might be something that you might want to focus on. The lockdown, if you're afraid of being ill or, disobeying the rules, maybe you're destined to follow your path and to stand true to what it is that you believe in and what your reality is for you. Because a lot of people, again, as we profoundly spoke about before, a lot of people will try to tell you what your reality is and how you should live. They'll try to tell you to put a mask on. They'll try to tell you to stay indoors or to go the right way. And that is not their call. They have absolutely, not even in the highest fabric of dimensions or guides or as a soul, that is the complete opposite of love. It is the complete opposite of where we're going, which is free will, unity, love, and compassion. So that's how, for me, that's how I kind of evolved and changed, is understanding that for me.
So I mean, again, it's you're constantly you're putting yourself out of the comfort zone, challenging yourself. So when something appears to you which might show up as fear based, you kind of like, you knock that down and you go, well, no, I'm gonna meet it head on. And that's really interesting, because I think, there are going to be people listening to this who get stirred by your words and know that there's something bigger within them, but something prevents them from actually just stepping up, or becoming, shifting from being a follower to them being a leader, and actually shining their light, that you say, that they have been manifested into their bodies for. So how do you, when you're working with your community, how do you really awaken other people to living their values, by, how do you show them, this is who I'm going to be today, yesterday was another day, tomorrow is another day, let's just keep moving forward. What are some of the things they need to look at?
I can do a very sort of brief and concise bullet list idea here. The first thing is the exploration of what is true for you. Like this is, and this can also be likened to who you are, because one of the questions that people don't fully understand, explore, should we say, is who they are. They don't understand that perhaps they're nervous or anxious or depressed, or maybe they're good at speaking or singing or etc. and other things. So it really starts with exploring the self. What is it that is, it really comes down to who it is you are as a person. And secondly, it comes down to beliefs. What is it that you believe? How much of those beliefs are your own? And then ultimately, what beliefs aren't yours and they've actually been placed upon you by other people? Because a lot of people, especially when I was in college, I used to say to them, I'm going to be a professional bodybuilder. I'm going to be Mr. Olympia on stage. The first thing they said to me was, oh, okay, what's your plan B? Like that used to, well, actually, I was more of a fiery kind of person there. So it didn't spark it didn't spark anything other than anger, because they were trying to tell me who I was. And the same applied. What gives them the right to tell me who I am? So the first thing when it comes to this awakening and stepping forwards is really understanding who you are. It is self-empowerment. It is asking yourself what is right for you.
Yeah.
So
that's cool. And you again, I relate to that. I think people get nervous for people, who have are rising up, ultimately to support others, because we are conditioned to believe that, choose a safe career, make sure you've got that monthly income coming in, rather than actually really having complete faith that the universe does always have your back, as we hear other teachers have said. But it's a big concept to get your head round. And when we think, when you think about, there must have been moments, James, where you just thought you stood out and then went back again. And so, I mean, what was it? When did your intuition really start to open up and take the form that it has taken, where you're absolutely confident that this is what you're meant to be doing?
So this is really interesting, and I will say this because for some people who are watching, that it might spark something. For a very, very long time, and we're perhaps talking about maybe 10 years now, I've been willing to give my life for what it is I'm doing. Sounds dramatic, right? Sounds, oh my God, okay, all right, like, relax a little bit. But it actually is as deep as that. I made a decision, and this was, again, one of the things that empowered me to be who it is I am. I made a decision that I will die doing what it is that I'm doing now. So when that became an idea and a concept within me, nothing else then got in the way. So for those who are watching and who would like to kind of understand how that might apply to yourself, my advice to you would understand that the universe has our back and you are the universe. You are quite literally, as a soul and as an energy within yourself, indestructible, not in a physical sense. You just are forever lasting because you are everything that's around you. So if you can understand that and kind of if that resonates and you can allow that to be your truth, then you realize that anything you do in this life and in this world then becomes not so serious, and yet the most serious things you'll ever do. And it can set you free to live your life and do what it is that you need to do without worrying about the fear of death or the fear of being ridiculed or criticized or the fear of not succeeding, because you will succeed. It becomes inevitable. There is no plan B, ironically. Thank you to my old teachers for that concept, right? What was your plan B? The next thing I asked myself is, what is a plan B? What do you mean? Like, I don't, like, obviously I get it, but to me, there wasn't one. It was, this is what is going to happen. I've said it's going to happen, and that's it. It's done. And yes, I changed, I evolved, I grew, but the concept always stayed the same. And so it empowered me to keep on going. When you're willing to give everything, and again, for some people, it might be a bit dramatic. So, you know, of course, however this applies. But to me, when you're willing to give everything to what it is you believe in and to what it is that your soul is calling for you to do, failure then is a concept that doesn't exist. Because as you profoundly said, the universe will consistently put people your way who will allow you to get to where it is you need to be. And I now have more than enough evidence for that.
Yeah, no, yeah, absolutely. I'm with you there. The doors open up when you make that commitment. And but it's tough, you know, and I think, you know, when you to step away from fear into your genius, solve all those problems, keep moving forward, you know, and every cell in your body is full of this energy, of this life force, you know, that's moving you forward. You know, in spiritual texts, they often refer to this as the God particle. You know, it's the unknowable. And we all have it, you know. It's whether we change our life and actually go on that journey to connect with it. Those that do, you know, again, it's you know, the thoughts there are that, you know, though it's a hero's journey, isn't it? It's full of it's full of challenges, you know, as you step over every part of that. But ultimately, things get lighter and lighter, and you move into, you know, a more peaceful place. You know, more connected to source energy, to source love, and so it's definitely a journey. It's definitely a journey to pursue. You know, it's just, how do you apply? You know, how then you apply yourself, really, you know, to move forward. Now, I you know, one of the things I wanted to just talk about was also, we're living in you know, we have all these systems around us, and we do you know, we do have, you know, the society is built in a certain way, and I do truly believe we are going through a change where we're moving from this kind of like looking up at role models, you know, whether that be a medical person, or whether that be a government official, or whether that be a CEO, or whether that be, you know, someone who hosts a show on TV, to understanding that actually we are all, you know, we are all geniuses. But that's also a lot of layers to peel off, because again, you know, you said yourself, you love watching TV, you love watching movies. I actually don't watch TV, and I'm currently not watching movies either. I feel a lot better and healthier for it, but that's okay. You know, that's my path. But those that are, you know, you're coming home every night, you're putting the TV on, you're watching a soap, you've been doing it for 20 years. How do you peel those layers off? You know, I mean, your whole conversation revolves around these individuals that you see coming out of the box.
Absolutely. And it's interesting, because I also, to bring back from that, what I mentioned before, and that to elaborate slightly as well, we all go to the darkest places. And it's kind of like, because obviously I don't want to bring this perception that I've been all, you know, of course, like I've had places where it's been so dark, it's been horrific. But in those moments, and to apply this to kind of peeling these layers off and getting out of the habits that you've currently been in, I'd recommend exploring what it is that you're currently experiencing. right? Whether that is a dark place or a joyful, happy place of contentment and calm and peace, like whatever your current state of being is, explore it. Because people say, oh, I want to get out of depression. I want to get out of anxiety. I want to get out of these emotions, without understanding that the emotions are presenting you with something that will allow you to grow. And that's controversial in some cases, but my entire life and everybody who I've worked with has reflected this as a truth. Again, I haven't worked with everyone in the world, but it really comes down to understanding that your emotions, right, what is within you, what is affecting you and your physical body within, is really something to be explored. So when you are in these habits of watching TV or perhaps movies or whatever it is that you've currently got as your routine, ask yourself the question, how happy am I? Am I comfortable? Am I content? There might be one person watching this who's like, yeah, I love it. I love it. My life is exactly where I want it to be and I don't want to change it. Although I doubt that's the thing, because if you're watching this, perhaps, you're looking and seeking for change and growth and shift. But it really comes down to asking yourself the questions, because what's the sentence people say, oh, if you speak to yourself, you're crazy, you're insane. Well, I'm talking to myself all the time. So if I'm crazy and insane, then I must be the highest of them, because I'm always asking myself, how do I feel? So when you're watching the movie, are you enjoying yourself? If not, consider turning it off. If you're fed up of watching 4.5, 5 hours of Netflix or TV series, if your body is sluggish and you're feeling like you're just not living or where you want to be, then make a change and don't fear it. Because fearing change is a paradox, because you are literally changing from one moment to the next. Your neurons, your thoughts, they're pairing up with each other. You're beginning to understand new things. You watch something, it changes your belief in your idea. You're gathering evidence from your environment through your perceptions. You are changing every moment. So to fear change is to fear the very nature of your existence. So to summarize, ask yourself the right questions and entertain another idea. Maybe you want to draw, paint, watch the sunset. Who knows?
Yeah,
try something
so many. It's so true. It's again, it's a knee-jerk reaction, isn't it, that we immediately go to the TV if the room is too quiet, or we feel like we haven't got anything else to do, or it is, again, it's the conditioning. And I mean, since I stopped watching TV, I'm trying to get more into the gardening, and my life has been full. I just wonder how I even have the time before. But also, what I really like what you just said, and I think that just needs some reflection because it's really powerful, is you said, think about how you feel when you're doing this. And I think that's really important, and if it's filling you up with really good feelings, then hey, it's obviously working for you, and it's an experience that your body absolutely wants. But if it's not, and when you apply your own wisdom and you realize that, then definitely that's time to look at alternative ways to to spend your time. I had a big clear out over lockdown, and I nearly got rid of two big boxes of books. And then because I was shifting my own self-care, I actually looked in them and I thought, you know what, I'm not going to get rid of these 2 boxes of books, because actually now I'm reading a lot more than I've ever read before. And I am going to, I'm probably going to want to read a few more of these again. So it was an interesting transition for me. And I think just actually boxing them all up and then actually feeling an attachment to them and realizing I'm not ready to let them go, and they fill me up with, I realize they fill me up with a lot of good stuff. I love reading every page. So James, I know you're very, how is the right word for this? I wanted to use the word ambitious, but it's not relating to ambitious. I know you're on a mission. And I can see that from the videos that you post and just how you're supporting so many people. So where do you, I think, have we lost you? Hello. Yeah. Where do you see yourself in 5 years' time from now?
It is an interesting question. And it's often one that, I guess the past and the future is something we do focus on, but it's sometimes impossible to know where we'll be because of what's going on around us and within ourselves, in our environments, in the world, and things like that. But I think in 5 years' time, I'll be doing exactly what it is that I'm doing now. And it's not going to change too drastically, apart from perhaps concepts, ideas, way that I'm sharing. And, you know, it's funny and very ironic, because literally this morning I did sort of a channeled meditation through myself, and I was working on my heart and opening it, and I was working with some beings that had presented themselves. And one of the things they asked me was, who is it who you're going to become? And my answer to them, which seemed to be a pretty good answer, my answer to them is not to help millions of people, although that might be an end result. But my objective is to help just one person, to sit them in the seat and ask them, what is it that you're feeling? Who are you? And to guide that one person, if it is in their highest good and their own choice. And then to go from there, one person at a time, and then just focus on that, because that's where, I mean, that is where the most focus is, the most enjoyment, the most passion, the most that I get is from working with a single individual, one at a time. You know, and of course I put my content out there for hundreds, if not thousands of people to have a look at. But again, it's always having a conversation with one person. And sometimes we get so drawn on getting 10 million, 20 million followers or whatever it is, and people coming along, that we forget that it's just one person at a time. You can only message one.
Yeah. I have the same policy with all my training courses. You know, it's very easy to get carried away with the numbers, you know, when you know, and that, oh, I should, you know, I should have this year, I should, you know, we should have this many trained, and then we've got this many people taking the tools out and the techniques out, and ultimately, you know, it's one person at a time. We have to change from, you know, we change from within to make a difference on the outside, and you know, and that's where the real truth comes from. And but my feeling is in 5 years' time, you know, you're already impacting thousands of people. I'm sure that's going to you know, be tenfold. And just really, James, you know, we're talking about also all the bliss factor of, you know, when you walk this path. But look, we all have our habits as well. So what is your favorite bad habit?
This is so funny, because I was literally, that question, I was chatting with my partner. I was like, what bad habits do I have? And my answer to that is, I guess on a practical level, perhaps a bad habit might be a little bit of procrastination here and there, and etc. But when I then thought about that, it's kind of like, that's all based upon opinion and ideas. Now, I know this is going to paint a picture, but when it comes to bad habits, I think of it like this. Is it something that I'm doing that is hindering me or affecting me in a negative way? And then when I ask myself that question, I make a decision to change it or carry on doing it. So it's kind of like, to just answer the question, maybe watching a movie while I'm working here and there, maybe it distracts me a little bit. But at the same time, for any of you who do have the ideas of bad habits and things you do, ask yourself the question, is it benefiting you and how do you feel? Just like we did before. And then have a look at changing it. Because one thing to kind of answer that is, I am always self-analyzing, and not in a crazy way, not like, oh my goodness, always that, but I'm always aware, what are my actions doing today? What has this done? Is this benefited me? Is this going to help me? So in the process of those questions, I kind of am able to eliminate any habits that might not benefit me. So bad habit, procrastinating, little sort of thing that might help people is, again, questioning what it is that you're doing. Because sometimes if I'm just sat there and I haven't done anything for 8 hours, I still enjoy it because I've given myself the time I needed. So I don't know.
Brilliant. Thank you. So James, if people want to follow your content, you put a lot out, you know, truly grateful for that. You work, you know, you really do work tirelessly to share these truths. So it may be people who are wanting to tap into that aspect of who they are, but also I think also your work is very much for people who are shifting from being a follower to a leader. You know, you are the way shower in that way. So how can they connect with your content?
For sure. So I have my Facebook profile, which is where it mostly is. That's just James Malins. I have my page and Instagram and YouTube, etc. Although I'm going to be putting more content on there soon. My Facebook profile is the main place, though. That's where I post the vast majority of my content.
And that's James Malins, isn't it?
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. Brilliant. Lovely. Well, thank you, James. Wonderful connecting with you.